record. So around verse 108 on page 422 of Hatha Yoga Pradipika. Kundalini is said to be coiled like a snake. Without a doubt, one who makes that Shakti flow obtains liberation. And she shares a picture here, which I'll share. While Kundalini is asleep in Muladhara, she is depicted as a snake, usually a cobra, coiled 3.5 times around a smoky gray Shiva lingam. I just want to look at this picture. Known as the Durumra lingam. The 3.5 coils present the form of the Om mantra. These 3 coils are the 3 states of existence and experience: conscious, subconscious, and unconscious, Jagrat, Swapna, and Shushupti, i.e. waking, dream, and deep sleep, objective experience, subjective experience, and non-experience, past, present, future. The 3 coils also represent the 3 qualities of nature: Prakti or Shakti, Tamas, Rajas, and Sattva. The half coils represent that which is beyond the play of nature, Turiya, or the 4th dimension, which includes any other dimension beyond the 3rd. The smoky Shiva lingam, around which Kundalini is coiled, is the subtle body, or Shukshma Shashara, also known as the astral body. But its ill-defined, smoky quality indicates that the inner consciousness is obscured in the challenging realities of the 3 realms of experience. In an unaware individual, the Kundalini has her head downward, but in the yogi, the head is lifted up as she begins to awaken. When the Kundalini serpent wakes up, she should rise through Sushumna until she is perfectly straight from the tip of her tail, anchored in Muladhara, to the top of her head, which fills the skull. It indicates pervading consciousness, which is not limited by any influence or subject to any modification. While Kundalini lies dormant in Muladhara, the connection to Ajna chakra takes place through Ida or Pingala nadis. Sometimes the connection does not even take place as there is a blockage. Once Kundalini has risen up so that the head is completely immersed in the brain, the connection is direct, Sushumna. The 3 states of experience merge into the 4th, transcendental, as the coils of the Kundalini are straightened. There is no separate existence of any of the gunas. There is no longer separation of anything. It all becomes one eternal cosmic experience. Between Ganga and Yamuna is the young widowed Balarandam practicing austerity. She should be seized forcibly. Then one can reach the supreme state of Vishnu. Here's another picture. Ida is the holy Ganga, Pingala the river Yamuna. Between Ida and Pingala, in the middle, is this young widow Kundalini. Here's the picture. In yogic and tantric lore, the river Ganga is known as Ida and Yamuna as Pingala. Ida and Pingala are the 2 major nadis sustaining the individual body-mind. A 3rd subterranean river, Saraswati, is also described. This is Sushumna nadi, the hidden channel conducting spiritual energy. In this way, the geography of the subtle body has been incorporated into the mythology of the people who lived beside these 2 great rivers since the dawn of civilization. Ganga and Yamuna have always been the source of life-sustaining water, while Saraswati is the subtle undercurrent of spiritual awareness, which so tangibly permeates life on the Indian subcontinent. Ida is dark in color, just as the river Ganga is deep blue at its origin. Ganga is fathomless, mysterious, and raging like the mental force. The mythology of Ganga's first descent on the earth describes her as wild and uncontrollable, capable of demolishing anything standing in her way. When she was released from her home ground in the Himalayan heavens, Lord Shiva had to catch her in his matted locks. After some time, he released her, and Bharagrithi guided her gently down through the earth to the earth through the body. Likewise, the force of Ida, if not controlled, can make a person turn into a lunatic. The tendency of Ganga to spill her banks and flood in every direction is an indication that she represents space. The unique quality of Ida and the unique quality, let me reread this. The tendency of Ganga to spill her banks and flood in every direction is an indication that she represents space. The unique quality of Ida and the right brain hemisphere. There is no such story about the origin of Yamuna River in relation to Pingala Nadi. Like the male or positive aspect of Pingala, Yamuna is sober in nature. It is the river by which Lord Krishna lived for many years. He overpowered the great serpent Kaliya in Yamuna and danced on her fan. Kaliya represents time, the quality of Pingala Nadi and the left brain hemisphere. Yamuna too is deep, but there are times in summer when it becomes dry, just as the Prana Shakti, vitality, also is sometimes lost and must be regenerated. So I think she's saying the Ida, which is the left side, represents space and the right brain. And then Pingala, which is the right side, represents time and the left brain hemisphere. These two rivers are terrestrial, just as Ida and Pingala Nadis are manifest forces. Sushumna Nadi lies deep within the central axis of the spine, just as the subterranean Saraswati River lies within the earth. These three rivers convene at Prayag near Allahabad in northern India. It is a powerful energy in the geological structure of the earth and is associated with the union of Ida, Pingala, and Sushumna in Ajna chakra in the subtle body. The Kundalini is described in this sloka as a young widow practicing austerity midway between Ganga and Yamuna, or Ida and Pingala. She is said to be youthful because the potential of Kundalini is likened to the irresistible power of a young and attractive woman. She is widowed because her husband Shiva remains in the lofty heavens at Mount Kailash, the Sahasrara chakra. She practices austerity in the sense that separation from her husband is the greatest penance, or tapasaya, a young and beautiful widow has to endure. She longs to be united again with her husband in Kailash. This is symbolic of the bliss to be attained with the ascent of Kundalini from Muladhara to Saraswara chakra. Muladhara is the source of energy or Shakti, and this word is so hard. Sarara is the abode of consciousness, Shiva. By seizing the tail of Kundalini's serpent, she becomes very excited. Abandoning sleep, that Shakti is released and rises up. If you hold any snake by its tail, it will definitely become alarmed and immediately rise up and attempt to break loose from the grip. By activating Muladhara, the energy is agitated and will seek to rise up out of its bondage there. Ida and Pingala must be closed. Sushumna must be opened or cleared. Whether or not Sushumna is opened can be judged by the natural flow of breath through the nostrils. When both nostrils are open simultaneously, Sushumna's door is open. Therefore, at the conclusion of your sadhana, when you are sitting for concentration, make sure both nostrils are functioning. If they are in balance, try to manipulate the breath so that it flows evenly. Verse 112, Shakti Chalana Mudra, attitude of moving the energy. Breathing in through the right nostril, Pingala, the serpent Shakti, should be seized through Kumbhaka and rotated constantly for an hour and a half, morning and evening. This practice of Shakti Chalana is carefully undisclosed here. There are two methods of practice, one according to Hatha Yoga, the other Kriya Yoga. Kriya Yoga utilizes mental visualization, whereas Hatha Yoga does not. Of course, this does not mean it may not be incorporated. In the practice of Kriya Yoga, Shakti Chalana is known as Shakti Chalini. Sit in Siddhasana, Siddhayona Asana, practice Kachari Mudra, which is the tongue, and Ujjayi Pranayama. Inhale up to Bindu and maintain Antar Kumbhaka. Inhale up to Bindu and maintain Antar Kumbhaka being the retention on the inhale. Then performing Yoni Mudra, visualize a thin green serpent in Arohan and Arohan passages, with the mouth biting its own tail. Then visualize the serpent rotating through Arohan and Arohan passages until the breath can no longer be held. I don't know those two passages. Are those the two passages that, those aren't the two that Amit was talking about the other day? The
Yeah,
other.
I was thinking that. I feel like he mentioned those, that there were other nadis.
He mentioned two other nadis. I don't remember the names. All right, well, let's just keep going. Maybe she'll explain. Then releasing Yoni Mudra, exhale back down to Muladhara. The practice in Hatha Yoga is different. The techniques used in Hatha Yoga are Mula Bandha, Antar and Baha Kumbhaka, Baha being the external retention, Siddhasana, Siddhayona Asana, and Nali. The Garita Samhita describes the practice in the following manner: smearing the body with ashes and assuming Siddhasana, Siddhayona Asana, one should inhale through both nostrils and forcibly join prana with apana. Then by Aswini Mudra, one should slowly contract the anus till the vayu is forced into the Sushumna and gives a particular experience. Then by restricting the vayu, Kundalini feels choked and rises upwards. Without Shakti Chalana, Yoni Mudra is ineffectual. So one should practice Shakti Chalana and then practice Yoni Mudra. The use of Aswini Mudra is mentioned here. Aswini Mudra has not been previously described in Hatha Yoga Pradipika. Mula Bandha is used instead. I think those ones were like part of what Amit was describing, the Aswini Mudra too, possibly. Technique. Sit in.
Ashwini when you squeeze your butt.
Aswini.
Mm-hmm.
I just remember him saying like some of the, I don't remember the names of the nadis he was saying, but I remember him like one was to the P and one was to the anus. Wasn't that what he was saying? And then, so I guess Aswini Mudra is the squeezing of the butt. That's what you said. Technique. Sit in Siddhasana, Siddhayona Asana. Keep the eyes closed through the practice. Inhale slowly and deeply through the right nostril and perform internal breath retention, Antar Kumbhaka. Perform Mula Bandha as tightly as possible, concentrating on the area of contraction. Hold the exhale in Mula Bandha as long as possible. Exhale slowly. I think also Amit was making a joke, like, did you guys hear him say, like, if we could practice just holding Mula Bandha on our exhale, then, like, he's like, we can't even do that. So don't even think about all that other stuff she was talking about. We have to master that first. Perform Jalahara and Uddiyana Bandha. Then practice churning Nali. Move the rectus abdomini muscles clockwise in a circular motion from left to right. Then directly back to the left and again circling to the right side, counting the numbers of rotations up to 10. Before inhaling, come back to Uddiyana, slowly release Uddiyana and Jalahara Bandhas. Only after the head is raised should inhalation proceed very slowly. This is one round. Though it is stated in the text that Shakti Chalana should be practiced for 90 minutes, this will not be possible, nor is it advisable. Initially, 5 rounds can be practiced. After 7 months of continual practice, gradually increase the number of rotations per round. Up to 20 rounds can be performed. Increase 1 rotation every 2 or 3 days. The number of rounds can also be increased very gradually, up to 10 rounds over a period of 1 year. The khanda, situated above the anus, 1 hand span high and 4 fingers breadth wide, is soft and white as if enveloped in cloth. Khanda means root, like the root of a plant. The khanda in the body is the root source from which all the nadis spring. It is said to be 9 inches high and 3 inches wide, soft and white, but it does not consist of physical elements. Its manifestation is entirely in the subtle body. The base of the khanda is just above the perineal floor, in which the perineal body is situated anterior to the anus. The middle of the body is sometimes considered to be 4 centimeters above and in front of the anus, and 4 centimeters below and behind the root of the male genital organ. Try to locate the consciousness at this point. The khanda extends upward from this point, supporting all the nadis, and is sometimes described as being egg-shaped. Those who have witnessed the Shiva lingam in one of the temples of Lord Shiva can visualize this. Some of the texts describe Manipura chakra, or the navel wheel, as the source from where the nadis emanate. However, the khanda, being 9 inches high, terminates at the level of Manipura. According to the Swami Sivananda of Rishikesh, the khanda is just above Muladhara, in the junction of Sushumna and Muladhara, which is called Granthi Sthana. Sthana means base or platform, and Granthi means knot. The petals of Muladhara lotus spring from the side of the base of the khanda. Within the spine, at the level of the upper back, the spinal cord tapers off into a group of long silken nerve filaments, known as coda equina, horse's tail. Long hair-like filaments cascade from the central mass of the tail as it continues down toward the base of the vertebral column. This structure in the physical body is said to correspond to the khanda in the subtle body. I feel like I should pause here so we can have a discussion and move to breath.
I found the first couple of slokas actually all the way through 112 to just be, they were fascinating. And that drawing on page 424, which is in verses 109, 110, is one of the first drawings I ever saw when I was introduced to yoga. And it's just, this is quite something. This is quite something. And what's interesting also is that I've been doing a lot of reading in physics on space and time. And the parallels between this and some of the stuff I'm reading is, and how the mind creates space and time is quite interesting, especially since one of the big conclusions in physics today, although it's not agreed upon by any means, is that space and time is a construct of the mind. And when you get past the mind and past the body, there is no space and time, et cetera. So it's so interesting because there's so many parallels here. So this I'm definitely going to reread over the weekend.
Yeah, I like that part where that's why I like paused, and of course I can't remember. I'm not sure if I'm sure I've heard it before, but it's not sticking with one side being space. I guess it's, let me see. I don't want to get it wrong.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
So the Ida side represents space, so the left side. And the right side is time. Pingala. It's a few paragraphs, pages down from the picture.
Yeah. What's interesting is, okay. So Ida begins on the left side and ends at Buladhara and ends in Ajna on the left side. And the same is true for Pingala, except the right side. Well, I mean.
Well, this picture has it starting and ending on the same side, but Pingala is on the right. Oh, I see. I mean on the right side of me. So like.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, so but it affects the left brain hemisphere, and Pingala represents time, and Ida starts and ends on the left side and affects the right brain hemisphere and affects space.
Yep.
Yeah, that was interesting. Okay.
I find it fascinating, and I can't talk about it because I'm pretty articulate this morning. So I'll just sit here and drool and appreciate it.
We got to clear out the blame. Maybe we should do extra rounds of breath today then.
But what is so cool is, and Amanda's been saying this since day one, is what people have known who have studied this for literally thousands of years, and what science is showing now. Oh, it's nifty.
Yeah, and actually, it's sort of related. I like literally never want to watch anything on TV, and Eric gets very frustrated with me. He's like, "Can you just find something to watch?" And I can find something to watch, but it's not something he's gonna want to watch. So we went to the Disney Plus, and there was I don't mind watching those like geographical shows on animals or whatever. And so I picked like a city. And he looked at me and he's like, I never would have guessed that you would have put this on. But it's never been like presented to me as something to watch. Like he lets me pick from a very limited selection of things to watch. So I found this thing to watch. And I can't remember the name of this city, but I think it was in Jordan maybe. And it was so fascinating on how they built this city in the middle of a desert. And like we're able to figure, and I thought about, so that's why I'm bringing it up, because just like even back then when they built this city, how the heck did they know that? But they did, they knew it. And that's why I can believe this stuff, because I believe we always knew. And we just keep forgetting, and we keep like greedy keep ruining it for us. So they keep like commercializing it, our lives, and brainwashing us, and we keep having to like pull back and be like, no. But yeah, it was a really, you know what, I'm not going to say the program was that interesting. I was kind of annoyed with how much they computerized it. Like I would have liked them just to like tour me around the city as it was, but they kept like making it fancy and like digitalizing what was where. And I'm like, I just want to see it for how they did it. And they were like coming up with all these ideas, and I don't know.
There's a whole group of bhakti yogis who argues against Darwin's theory, and they actually think we're de-evolving as a human species, because they say like there are these things found in archaeological digs that like they just disregard because they don't fit into sort of the, I don't know what the word would be, just like what the theory of the day is. So they just disregard it, and they don't bring it into, the teachings in the history books, and they don't bring it into the teachings in the anthropology classes. And it's like there's this big portion being omitted. And if you think about these ancient cultures and what they were capable of, the way they built architecture and structure societies, like a lot of the Vedic stories they say are a history. They're just a very specific history where we can get a peek into the past, essentially. Like they've outlined India is one of those ways to sort of see into the past, because they're such incredible record takers for thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years. Like in Alexandria, I think there was a library that burnt down, and we lost access to so much ancient information. Yeah, it's just it's an interesting theory to me. Are you talking about, is it called Petra in Jordan?
Petra. I think that was it. Yeah. I can't remember the name of the show. Maybe it was Petra. Did you watch it?
No, I've had friends who've traveled there.
Yeah, I like this because I'll never go to Jordan. I mean, it's not on my radar. So it was interesting. I never even had heard about it because I grew up in a bubble. And
Like, even if you go to the temples in India, it's like that. Like, you just look at the architecture and the artistry, and these temples are thousands of years old and they're still standing, and it just boggles your mind, where they're like, you've been taught that, ancient people are primitive, and then you see these structures and it's like, how could they have been primitive?
well, I was lucky enough to go to Italy last year, and I went to Rome and went to the Colosseum and the Roman palace, and got to see, like, I mean, I was like, I can't believe we're just paying to see. I don't know if you guys have been there, but they're just you're welcome. And like some tour guides, like, this is where the living room used to be, and I'm like, part of me was like, how do you know? But I'm sure there were experts that obviously figured it out, and talk about like how they heated the room and like built fires underneath. Oh, what, Sue?
I've been to Rome several times and done some of that stuff, and these are stories that make sense based on the artifacts and the structures that they find. So they do make sense. Whether or not they're totally accurate, who knows? But one thing I wanted to say is that another way of looking at this is, and I think it is true, that there's a certain segment of the population that wants immediate gratification, and therefore certain things are destroyed, or certain kinds of knowledge are obscured or ignored, or and maybe not even with nefarious intent, but with the intent to get stuff now, make money now, do what we want now. And it may not even be nefarious, it's just very short-sighted. But another way to look at it is this knowledge that gets in some ways rediscovered is it's looked at through different tools, because we have different tools. How can I say this? At each stage, it's not like we are refining the same knowledge. It's as if we're looking at phenomena using different tools, and therefore can talk about it somewhat differently. So the fact that yogis could talk about space and time the way that they did thousands of years ago is very interesting. The fact that physicists can talk about space and time now the way that they can is, to my mind, very interesting on top of this, because it's another way of looking at it, and it is almost like further evidentiary, proof that, yeah, so let's keep looking. And who knows how people will be looking at things in 100 years if we don't blow ourselves up first.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not necessarily that everybody was evil and that most of the population wanted to hide the stuff. To my mind, it's more people are concerned with living their lives, and sometimes when you're more concerned about surviving wars, invasions, and pestilence, and putting food on the table, you don't have time to think about this stuff, and it can disappear. So the library that Amanda in Alexandria that burnt down was supposed to be huge and chock full of wonderful stuff. But this happens repeatedly. History goes in cycles. And when we got to the Dark Ages, prior to the Dark Ages, there was amassed knowledge that was just lost. It was either ignored, forgotten, or destroyed during the Dark Ages. And it was almost as if you have to build it up all over again. But I like to think that somewhere this knowledge is accrued somehow. Maybe it's wishful thinking on my part, but this knowledge is accrued, and it's, there's a phrase and they use in education, scaffolding. You teach your kid something, and then once he understands this, you can go to the, hey, if you thought that was cool, wait till you get here, and so on. And I like to think that somewhere there's kind of a generic universal scaffolding of knowledge and of understanding, which translates into acceptance, because the more you understand, the more you, to my mind, the more you have to accept various things. And that's tied with the more you understand, the more you understand what you don't understand, which is slightly painful, but true. Anyway.
Yeah, I feel like somewhere along the way, between now and then, which is the same time, because if time isn't real, then, but somewhere along the way that people knew this information, and then people took advantage of it. Like, this is what my mind thinks. Like, well, then people took advantage of it and became our world leaders, and just like were like gonna wave the carrot to us over here, so we wouldn't access this good information, so we could all live a good life, because these people that were unhappy and greedy just wanted to take control and power. So they led us away, and fires were made, and we lost information, and we're still trying to untangle ourselves from these people that are creating the bad, when not like the wars that you're talking about, so that we can just come back to this practice of like understanding all this stuff that we already knew, but we're being like hidden from. I don't know. I feel like people were just taking advantage of it. Let's do some breath work and meditate. Oh.
Okay. Oh, it's late already.
Yeah, we're not too far off. A few minutes. Time isn't real. Or maybe it is.
Never mind.
I can't go to work today and be like, time isn't real to the people.
No. It's real interesting, because the whole thing, time isn't real, but it is real within certain contexts. So you can go to work and watch the clock. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. All right, I gotta mute myself, or I will never shut up. Okay.
I know, it's that type of day. All right, so let's just take a few rounds of breath to just try to pull the mind into the present. Taking a few rounds of breath, bringing attention to the breath. Inhale through the nose. Feel the breath moving down the spine into the base, and then up the spine and out through the nose. And as Amanda says in her newsletter, maybe just practice tolerating all those thoughts that are going on in the mind. Trying not to erase them, but just tolerate them. I like this practice of tolerate. And then bring your right hand over to your face. Close your right nostril with your thumb. Inhale through your left. Close left. Exhale right. Inhale right. Close right. Exhale left. Continuing on your own with your own breath, own count, own retention. Adding locks if it's in your practice. can continue on with what you're doing. I'm going to do 3 rounds of bumblebee breath if you feel like that's for you today. If you want to join me, just make sure you exhale out of your left nostril when you're finished with your alternate nostril breathing. When you feel ready, dropping your palms to your lap, settling into your meditation. Bringing hands to your heart. Namaste.
Thank you, Pam.